what they're saying, right? Just be clear for our audience, because I actually read that article. I didn't look at the headlines.
But let's
what they said was
dropping gems like we preaching. Don't overstep the line of my freedom of speaking. We cast to the world. Welcome to the Jury's Out podcast, the off-the-record show where attorneys and educators discuss various social issues in a raw, uncut, uncircumcised fashion. Because you know, the jury's out. That's right. So today we have our two guests.
Shawn Fortune.
That's right, Shawn Fortune, yep. who is an entrepreneur, but also somebody who's buying houses and flipping them and pulling up in McLarens and stunning on motherfuckers. All right, and our second guest,
Peter White,
who is into foreclosures, is kicking motherfuckers out their house when they not paying their rent or other unfortunate situations.
Keeping them in their homes.
Oh, keeping them in their homes. Oh, okay. My fault. I thought a foreclosure means like you don't get it no more. I'm not very well versed in this reality.
He helps them with dealing with foreclosure.
Oh, okay. So I apologize, man. You helping them with the foreclosures.
We'll get into it.
Word. Please educate me, because obviously I need the education. So I need a lot of it. So of course I always have with me, strapped on the right side with my shooting fingers, is Ev. Always in the building.
What up?
And the magnificent Eugene as well.
How's it going?
Holding me down, man. I really appreciate y'all. And so yeah, we just gonna talk about two sides of the real estate coin. Yeah. So first, why don't you reintroduce yourself and tell us how you got into that wild real estate game?
Man, real estate. Well, my name is Shawn Fortune. Like you said, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in real estate. It's a long story how I got into real estate.
Give me the short version. What made you was like, nah, I gotta get into this?
You know what it is? I had a coworker of mine, because I was always buying cars all the time, and that's all I knew.
Oh, word.
Yeah, he came to me. He says, "Yo, bro, man, like, why are you sitting there buying all these cars? Why don't you buy a house?" And I'm 23 or 24 at the time, around 24. I'm like, well, what do you really mean buy a house for what purpose? That's how I'm thinking, because nobody really showed me then how to buy a house or why I should buy a house.
Can't use a house to pull up on the club. Right? Can't pull up on a house like, yo, what up, shorty? I got money.
And what tied together with that was that the store I was working for at the time was running into issues. And I was the finance manager there, and I went to the owner and I said, hey, what are we going to do? What's the story? Do you have any type of backup plan? His whole thing was just the car business. And when I saw that, I said, you know what? If he goes down, I go down too with no job. So let me try to figure out another way to do something. So I took his advice and I decided to buy a multifamily in Brooklyn. And from that, it took me into wanting to buy houses once I received that first check without doing anything.
Ah, okay.
That was a rent check? Or that was
a rent check. Well, it was my the first month payment and security, so all that one shot. I was like, this is pretty cool. Maybe I can try to do it with multiple people.
Okay. So, well, that's definitely a moving point. That would definitely motivate me.
And when was that? What like year was that?
Well, I bought the house when I was 26. I can't remember the year, actually. It was like 6-7 years ago.
I ain't trying to date you with that.
Okay, and you can reintroduce yourself and also tell us what got you into foreclosure work and helping people keep their homes.
So again, my name is Peter White. I actually, I was a law school classmate at Eugene.
What up, St. John's all day? Every day?
We graduated the same year. And I just remember 1L year going to this 5x5 foot apartment, hanging out. It was small, but it was on Upper East Side, so,
Okay.
It was nice. Yeah, Gene always a solid dude. So how I got into this, basically, I graduated law school, I needed a job, like a lot of people, right?
Hell yeah.
So I applied to different places. I originally wanted to do international environmental law, not as many jobs.
All through law school. There's not much shit that I was like, they do classes for that?
They teach you about pollution 101.
Yeah. Well, they do. But basically, I got into this. I needed a job. I interviewed at a place. They did foreclosure defense work. They did landlord-tenant work, and they did bankruptcy work. Nothing I really wanted to do at the time. But growing up, my parents actually had a business where they bought and they flipped properties, and they also bought properties and they rented them out. Obviously, it's a lot cheaper to do that back in like the 90s. But it was an area I was more or less familiar with, right? Not necessarily the law. So I worked at a small firm doing it for basically 3 years. I ran around every day to like different types of courts. Like some days I was in landlord-tenant court in the morning, mostly doing eviction work, but for small landlords, right? And then sometimes I'd go back to the office, grab a sandwich, and then I'd have to run to the LIRR to go to Brooklyn to the bankruptcy court in the Eastern District. So it's just a lot of that, a lot of writing, because obviously that's a critical skill as an attorney. And I learned more or less this area of the law, and then how other like ancillary areas kind of, they all like how all these areas work together, right? Because you'll have a lot of people, right, such as Shawn, they'll buy a home, and then, they'll have Department of Buildings violations, which I deal with now. Or
You felt that.
no, because they're not fun.
Well,
It's like,
break that down. Like, what's the Department of Building violation?
so basically, Department of Buildings violations are when not a landlord, but like a property owner, knowingly or unknowingly, basically doesn't comply with buildings laws, right? New York City buildings laws. The most common ones we see are like work without a permit, right? So a lot of times people will think they'll get a licensed contractor, right? They'll go down the block. Someone say, I know so and so, my cousin, does this type of work. They'll do it. Maybe sometimes they'll do a great job. A lot of times they don't. But then they'll find out later that person never pulled a permit and they never had a license. And someone thinks, okay, well, I got a deal, so everything's okay. But then the Department of Buildings, they'll come, an inspector will come. They'll say, well, you have all this stuff in here that you all these fixtures in your home you installed, you didn't have a license to do it. And then they'll hit you with a $2,500 violation. And if you don't comply, or if you don't get the violation dismissed, which is my job as an attorney, I try to go litigate these violations, then you'll get additional ones. So I have some people who I'm actively working with now, and they have like 50 violations. And it comes from 3 underlying violations. Maybe they'll have someone living in their basement, or technically it's a cellar, right? And then then the Department of Buildings alleges that they did work in the cellar and they converted the home from a 2 to a 3 family. There's all these nasty violations, and then you get what's called a failure to comply, which is another $1,250 on top of it. And the next thing you know, this person has 50 violations. And what a lot of people don't know, if you owe more than $30,000 for property taxes, for water, and for Department of Buildings or like sanitation violations, or Department of Health violations, the city can actually auction off your home in a tax lien foreclosure sale.
Wow. So even if you up to date on your payments and stuff like that,
Exactly.
if the violations just stack on top of each other, it can just be your property can be taken from you.
Yeah, honestly, it's a lot of senior citizens, right? People who, like, look at this area, right? There are a lot of older people. They bought their homes in the 60s or 70s. They paid off their home a long time ago, but they may not have the money to upkeep the home, right?
Or the knowledge.
You see it a lot in Brooklyn, because if you ever walk down the street in like Clinton Hill or Bed-Stuy, you can tell what kind of like the new people, who just paid $2 million for the house from Ohio, came in, they bought the home, and then next door you can clearly tell it's a senior citizen that's like African American or Puerto Rican, and you see it a lot. Like, I see it every day. I see it with respect to the oath violations, and also you see it kind of in the foreclosure realm. And these are a lot of people I deal with.
Right,
Sure.
like my grandfather had a place in Brooklyn once, and I remember I would go to his basement all the time, and he had a shop down there, like full blown bandsaw, like he had a full like shop that he would build things down there, and there's sawdust like everywhere. Like he didn't sweep up, and then there was like a staircase, like a steps that came down, and it was up to your knees in leaves. Like he never really cleaned the leaves out. And then one day, like somebody was like, "Yo, man, that's a fire hazard. Like that's an automatic, you know, you're gonna get fined for this. And my grandfather was like, I don't give a shit about that. You know, like brushing it off. And then later had to like pay when he tried to sell the building. They were like, oh, you've got this violation, you got that violation. And so what he wanted to sell for, he was affected by all the violations that he had to pay when he had somebody come to appraise it or something like that.
And see, now you're looking at the nexus of what I do and what Shawn does, right? Because what happens is, and I'm sure you can speak to this like in a second, right? So people will go to sell their homes, or people will come, like, let's say they'll buy a home, right? And I've had situations like this, and they'll say, oh, well, the previous landlord put this money in escrow, right, to fix these violations. And same thing with like tenants, right? If they don't get tenants out, and the new landlord, and then I'll break down to the new landlord. It's like, well, this is what's going on. Actually, if you don't get this and this dismissed, then you can be looking at $20,000, $30,000 in violations. And they're like, oh, they only put 15 in escrow. And it's like, people don't really know how this stuff works, right? And it's, it's a boon to the Department of Buildings because they're making a lot of money off this stuff.
Do you find trouble with that when you're buying property? Like sometimes you come up and be like, you know what? There's so many violations on this property, it's not even worth it.
Yeah, I buy property in Maryland. I kind of refuse to deal with property in New York City because of buildings.
Because of how they operate.
Really?
So they operate differently in Maryland?
Yes, very very different. Give an example. I mean, the fines, you do receive fines, but it's not as steep as the New York City fines you receive, like for trash. That's probably like one of the few fines I've received from the Department of Buildings in Maryland, but they're much more lenient in terms of fines than the boroughs.
Like in what way? Like
prices of the fines, a cost factor.
Right.
If you do,
they give you like $100 fine,
$40 fine, $30 fine.
Right.
So how did you? Was that something that was told? Like, how did you come to know that you didn't want to deal with buying property in New York? Like, is that something that's that's known?
No, I'm a finance guy, so it boiled back down to the numbers numerically. For the purchase prices for the homes in New York and the rental I was receiving there, I could buy the home for a quarter of the price and receive similar rent. My cash flow is more down there. The rent roll is bigger. New York City, buying property today is, if you're buying single family, it's a automatic liability. And if you buy even a multifamily today in the boroughs, I don't know if you're even making money today because how high the property costs are.
Of just owning and maintaining the home.
Both.
God.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, it's all about position.
it's hard out here for a pimp. Oh man, that's crazy.
Woo.
So what? Like, so I gotta ask yourself, like, what's the point, man? I mean, just in New York City.
It's New York City. You have other opportunities in other places. I went for Maryland because of the price point. Once again, the rent. I actually practice a method called the Bur Method.
Can you Bur? How you spell
It's called
that?
Bur, like brr, like you cold.
Brr. I thought the money machine go brr.
So that actually helped me into strategically,
So what's that?
What's the Bur? Is a Bur method something you came up with?
No,
or is
actually,
it
it's
something that they like that's like taught in education. Like,
It's actually-
the Bur method and the Smith method.
it stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. So in steps of buying a house, if you follow these steps, you will come out of putting a deposit down on a house, refinancing it, getting your money back from the deposit, and making money every month on the house with none of your personal money trapped into the property. And you can do this step over and over, and next thing you know, you have 20 doors, 30 doors.
Can you say it again? Say it again, because I won't lie. You said it.
What?
I got a little lost. So. say it again one more time.
Well, it's called the Bur Method.
Yeah.
So it's you buy the property,
You
rehab the property, mean fix the property up.
Yeah.
You rent the property. After you rent it, the property is complete. It's fixed from the initial time. Now it's producing income.
Okay.
And now you're going to refinance the property. Basically going back to the lender and say, hey, my property is built up. What's the new value?
Okay.
And then at the table, when you're going back to sign for the new numbers, which is closing, most of the time you have, if you do it right, you have money back at the table. So you're signing again for your same house, is giving you a big check, and then it's producing income every month for you. So that's the key. And you take that same money again and keep reinvesting it, buy another house and buy another house.
All right.
You know?
This is dope because I'm gonna be looking for houses now.
I mean, I learned all this stuff
Not
on
New York though. It's crazy out here.
It's very, very high.
It's nuts.
It's
But
very-
why Maryland exactly though? Is it just did you just like that area or
No,
Oh, you said
actually,
the numbers, right?
the numbers. I had a good friend of mine. When I had said I bought a house in Brooklyn, I felt like I was doing something great. He looked at me and said, "You're crazy," nonchalantly, and I'm like, he's like, "You're crazy because the numbers don't make sense. You should look into Maryland." And he started talking about the numbers, and since I've been doing finance, it started making sense. I was like, for a house with maybe $100,000, I can get $1,500 rent a month. What's the mortgage on that? 800, 900.
Yeah.
So it made much more sense.
Did you look at other states or just?
Sorry?
Did you look at other states or you just dove into Maryland like?
I looked into Delaware, Wilmington, but Maryland just because like
Numbers.
numbers.
I mean, well, you wasn't going to go to like Utah or something where you got to
I mean,
fly to
it's
go to
too
your
far.
shit.
It was.
Too
I mean, I
far.
was doing this every week, traveling 2 times a week to Maryland.
Word.
Every week for like a couple years.
I heard in the McLaren you get there in 3 hours.
Go into them toll booth gates, man.
Right under like that.
So, what's the process? Like, I guess how long does it take to go through a full Bur?
In Spanish, we go. Brrr.
Well, I'll speak on my own experience. My first time doing it took me about, I want to say 7 to 8 months because I was just learning and I made absolutely no money on the property.
Like you was hitting zero, or you was like in a debt? You was in a negative.
No, I just broke even. I got all my money back on the sale of the home.
The free college.
You know, and that's how I tell people. I was like, I didn't make no money on this property, but the amount of knowledge I gained from this, I could reapply it again and produce.
Right.
You
That
know?
was Bur University.
That was Bur University. Bur you.
But it's I learned that on Bigger Pockets. I tell all my friends to sign up for biggerpockets.com. It's a forum. It's for newbie investors, superstar investors, where you can learn about all the ins and outs of like real estate, especially the jargon, which is the most important.
So in the foreclosure world, why are they so? Why is it such a more, fine-tooth comb that New York goes through? Is it just because there's so many people living so close to each other that the square footing created this, I guess, for lack of a better word, culture of there being the fees so high and there being so many violations in
I think it's
existence?
because New York, you got scammers. Scamming
You
people
think
at
so?
their home.
It was solely to combat scammers.
There's a lot of scams, to my knowledge, of people getting like their house sold from under them.
Yes,
So
a
I
lot
think
of
that's
that.
a big thing.
Can you explain what he's talking about? How do you get your household from under you?
Or as I like to say it, like this: New York City has con men. Georgia and Florida, they have the scammers. There's a difference.
yeah,
Okay.
The con.
he's right.
Okay, yeah.
Can you say that again?
New York has con men, right?
Right.
Places like Florida and Georgia, they have scammers.
Okay.
So there's a difference, right? The con man is the type of person who comes up to you on the street. He has a suit on, looking real nice, and then next thing you know, you're butt naked and he's running down the street and he's selling your clothes off to somebody else, right? It's someone who you think is respectable, you think is a business person, right? But then you realize that this person is none of that, right? Mm-hmm. They'll come to your house. They're like, oh, well, I can help you refinance your home. I'm an attorney. I used to work on Wall Street. I do all this stuff, and then you realize that no, not any of that, right? Mm-hmm. Scammer is someone who steals your old people's credit card numbers and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It's a different level of sophistication.
Scammers are like Ocean 11.
Yeah.
If you've seen that movie.
Yeah. But the thing is, we encounter a good number of these people, right? These con people, because what they'll do Especially in Brooklyn, right? Because Brooklyn, number one, has the largest population in New York City.
Brooklyn all day.
Yeah. And also, Brooklyn has the largest number of senior citizens in New York City, right? And obviously, property values have essentially doubled over the last 15 years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, properties in Williamsburg and Bed-Stuy, weren't
3 million, easy.
No, easy. A lot of these properties. I have one client, house is beautiful. It's massive, and yeah, it's worth like $3 million. But he bought it 30, 40 years ago.
Like 15,000, 30,000.
A little bit more than that, but the thing is, it's the property values increased 30 times, right, during that time period. And you have a lot of people who they want those homes. They want to get into the market, right? And that's why real estate is such a tough market. I mean, Shawn was saying, right? He started buying properties in other states where there are more opportunities, right? Where he can just look at the numbers, and you don't have to deal. Number one, people going to people's homes and basically knocking on their door, saying, "Oh, I'll give you this for your home. Let's do a short sale. Let's refinance your home." And the next thing you know, this person finds out 6 months later that their deed was transferred into the name of some LLC that they don't know where the LLC came from, and the LLC is trying to sell the property to somebody, right? Like you see it all the time, and that's why the Attorney General, Letitia James, actually started a special task force with respect to these deed scams. So it's something, and I would advise anyone listening to this podcast, if you have parents, they're elderly, they may be living alone. Please register for acris.org. It's basically the New York City's electronic deed storing system. So your mortgage, like if you take out a mortgage, it's probably going to be there. Every deed transfer that occurs is going to be there. So if let's say someone transfers a deed out of your name, let's say they just forge your signature, or sometimes let's say someone working in your property will have you, like the person sign a lot of papers and one of the documents is a deed, and they register it. It's going to appear on Acris, and then you're going to get a notification. You can get a notification by text. You can get a notification by phone. You can get a notification by email. Mm-hmm. And I would advise that everyone do that on their properties, because you can never be too careful with that stuff.
I got to call my grandma right now, because she got a spot in Bensonhurst, man, and she keep getting people knocking on her door trying to cop the crib. So
no, you should.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah. That's crazy.
How do you spell that?
Acris, ACRIS.
Acris. I feel like I've seen that acronym somewhere before.
Just Google it. NYC Acris.
And so because we got so many, comment in New York City, to combat that, the legal system has created this very strenuous, check system. This system of making of this is a violation, that's a violation, and those violations being very high. Like he was saying in Maryland, the same violation here over there would be a tenth of the price, or
So that's a little different, right? So I mean, there are a few structures to it, right? So you have like what I call a judicial foreclosure system. So just for anyone who doesn't know, right? Certain states have what's called judicial and then non-judicial foreclosure systems. And some states have hybrids, like Maryland, right? Judicial foreclosure system, all that means is you have to go through a full court case to get to the actual foreclosure auction. Now, if you get a decent attorney, that attorney may stretch that case out for years. I have people with cases from 2014, 2015. I have people who haven't paid their mortgage in like 10 years. And we're still in court, because they had decent representation during that time. Non-judicial foreclosure systems are basically like a lot of like southern states, right? You sign a note in a mortgage, right? Let's say you don't pay for 4 months. The sheriff's knocking on your door, and they're having an auction right outside, and there goes your house, right? And then you could
still be in the house.
Well, I mean,
like you in the bed sleeping, you wake up, yo, my man, you got to get out. This is my crib, boy. I just copped this shit for $20. Leave the Jordans, bro. Take the rest of your shit and go.
It's a wild, wild south, man.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much, and they make this so at gunpoint.
That's crazy.
Get
off my lawn now.
but then you have like these states that are kind of like quasi, right? So if you got to look at the documentation you sign. And sometimes, like the note in the mortgage, just say, that they can foreclose on the home without having to go to court, right? In some situations they do. But luckily for everyone who lives in New York State, you don't have to worry about it. So what we do basically, when I work for a non-for-profit, people come to us, they say, oh, I just got what's called a summons and complaint, right? I mean, just like you sue somebody, you have to serve them with a summons and complaint, letting them know, like, you know, what your problem is, right? And they'll come to us, we'll file what's called an answer for them, and then we try to help them settle the case. Now, I mean, it's no secret. You need you need money to own a home, right? It's not like some people come to us, they're like, I really want to save my home. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so how much are you making a month? Well, I'm not working right now. Are you receiving any Social Security? What are you receiving? I'm not really receiving any money. Do you have tenants? It's like, yeah, but they're not paying. It's like, what do I do? You know? And that's a tough situation for a lot of people. And I think that's one of the things that forces a lot of people out, right? Like they had jobs for many years, and then next thing you know, they'll refinance, they'll do something else with the property, and then they just don't have the money. Some people, I have plenty of clients who were making good money when they were younger. Now they're like 75, 80 years old, and they're not making anything, or they're getting paid like $800 a month in Social Security, and that's it.
So it's safe to say that it not only takes money to buy a home, but it takes money to hold on to your home.
Yeah, and there are a lot of pitfalls to owning a home in New York City, because this is what people do. I mean, unfortunately, everyone cannot be as financially savvy as Shawn is, right? While looking at the numbers. So I feel like a lot of my clients fall into maybe like 2 or 3 classes of people, right? You have number one, the people who got bad mortgages from the beginning, right? That maybe the interest rate went up after a few years, and they thought, okay, well, I just really want a home. I really want a home, because most people think about a home. This is like they would think about kids, like on an emotional level, right? And they say, oh, I really want a home. I really want a home. They'll get a product that'll get them in the home. Exactly. We don't see as much of those anymore, but it's the same thing. It's adjustable rate mortgage. So basically,
we'll get an arm. Oh, like that.
Or if the bank sticking an arm out to take the house back.
Right. Or they cut your arm off.
But basically, the whole concept of the arm is, let's say you get in a home, right? It's originally like the interest rate's 2%, and you're like, oh, this is great. I'm paying $2,000 a month. It's a little tough, but our family, we can manage it, right? 3 years later, interest rate jumps up to 4%. Then you're like, oh wait, now the mortgage is like $2,800 a month. Whoa, but people don't look at that stuff, right? You don't see as much of it anymore, because after the financial crisis in 08, 09, the federal government became stricter on like their lending criteria, right? So you don't see as much anymore, some of the older stuff. So that's one class of people. People who kind of were, I don't say doomed, but doomed from the beginning, right? It's just bad situation.
Shawn, what was obviously, I feel like we're putting these on two sides, really successful and fucking depressing. I kind of want to,
bro. We help a lot of people.
Take a second and just go through what was your experiences with all these elements that Peter's talking about. Like what was the learning curve on figuring out the finances towards
to buy the home?
Like to buy the home, or even like, have you had any bad experiences touching these areas?
No.
It's like that's
but he does the numbers, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's not.
So
it's
these
not
are the people who aren't doing the work.
Yes.
Upfront.
They buy off emotional circumstances when they buy those houses, based off, oh, this is a beautiful kitchen, this is a beautiful bathroom, but
they see their families in
there.
there.
That's the worst way to buy a home. The worst way.
What's the work? Like I guess let's talk about that then. Like what do you think is like the meat of doing it right? So for someone who doesn't understand, because I think if I bought a home tomorrow, I'm not sure if I'm gonna buy the right home. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, I think that. So then, like, when you look to invest into a home, right? What do you look for in the property? You know what I mean? Is there something you look for?
Yes, I look for value adds.
Okay, so you look at the value adds, and then like you physically go and look at the home. and you see what needs to be done.
So what the hell is a value add?
What's a value add? Like it's got steps, or if it comes with
like when I'm home, I mean, like when I'm in a home, I'm trying to rehab it. I get excited when I see a broken cupboard or the kitchen needs to be redone or just drywall. Like those are stuff that adds value to the bank, not adding flowers outside my house and stuff like that. Yeah.
So the shittier it looks,
the more
potential.
Correct.
It's shittier but easy to rehab. That's like a value
because
add.
to me,
besides the structural
Does
stuff.
it matter?
Besides the structural stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Little shit.
But if it's like if you got a ugly ass or a messed up kitchen, isn't that more money you're gonna have to put into it?
Well, depends what you're buying the house for.
Okay.
Maybe you're buying that house 150, 200,000 below market value in accordance to all the houses in the area.
Right.
You buy the crappiest home in the best neighborhood. That's a rule of thumb buying real estate.
There you go.
And then you're not planning to up it up. You're just waiting for it.
No.
You're not planning to put a new facelift on it.
You put a facelift on it.
No, he said you buy the shittiest home in a good neighborhood, and then you make it middle of the pack, and that process will make you 100 G's.
Yeah, make a lot of money.
And they say too, right? The two things in the home, if you fix them, that will increase the value the most. All right, the kitchen and the bathroom. So if there's a crappy kitchen, it's not like structural. So it's not like it has like uneven floors, like stuff that's going to cost a lot of money, right? It's like you can just fix it up, add some fixtures, and you can.
Yeah, because anybody is looking for an apartment to rent or something, the first thing they look at is the kitchen and the bathroom.
Right.
So those are the most important value adds in the property.
Because I need to be comfortable when I shit and when I eat.
Exactly.
Fuck out of here, yo.
So simple.
Like, I ain't trying to shit and be sideways.
Fucking is stirred. Fucking is stirred. I like eating shit before I fuck.
Exactly. I can fuck on the floor. Like, I can't shit or eat on the floor.
But like anything, it takes a lot of due diligence. The experience will not come right away. And the only way I believe you really learn is by diving in, getting involved. 150%.
So how many homes you in now? If you keep count.
How many homes?
No, it's not a lot.
How many homes do you
5.
need to get them to come
Okay.
out?
5 properties.
Okay. So you've done 5 already.
Yes.
You got one in the chamber, or you still looking for the right one?
Well, right now I'm not looking for a home because how the market just. Well, I was kind of looking for a home, but I'm not looking for an income producing property right now just because how the market is.
Right.
Everything's overinflated.
So it's interesting. I thought that
I agree.
Like property values were down now. No.
Nah, they up.
Everything is up.
Oh no, maybe it's the interest rates that are down, right?
Rates are actually stabilizing. They were going back up. They just started to stabilize.
Okay.
Yo, I want to
I don't
question
know
about
shit,
that.
so don't listen to
I want
me.
to question about that interest rate because if I thought an interest rate, like, to my understanding, is like if the interest rate is part of the deal. So how can an interest rate go up if it's like, nah, man, we made that deal at 4%, and now this year it goes up? Like, how? I don't understand how the mechanics of how that works.
It depends on the type of mortgage you took out, like you were
That's the
saying earlier.
adjustable one.
Yeah,
If it's
it was a
adjustable,
part of it.
then you agree to let them adjust it, right?
So
People don't.
Adjust it up or down? Like,
What's the difference
by
between
market.
the two and like define them? Like
So
one's
you have like a ARM, right, which is generally like a subprime product, right? It's basically you don't come with a lot of cash to put down, and you have messed up credit, right? Mm-hmm. So essentially we had a policy, right, from like the 80s to basically 2000 where we wanted to get everyone at homes, right? So even if you had messed up credit, you didn't have a lot of money, we were putting people in homes, especially, the early 2000s with like Countrywide and all these other companies sprouted up. But the thing is, you clearly, if you don't have a lot of cash to put down or no cash and you don't have good credit, you're not going to get a great interest rate. So people were taking the crappiest of interest rates just to get in the home. And honestly, a lot of these documents, like a note or a mortgage, it'll say it on its face. It'll have a little table and it'll show you year 1 to 3 interest rate 2%, year 3 to 12 interest rate 4.5%, year 12 to year 30 interest rate 6%. And people don't realize how much your mortgage goes up based upon those interest rates.
bad math.
Yeah, but then also reverse.
so they just not paying attention.
They ain't even looking.
But not just
not paying attention.
But not just that. It was reverse redlining too, And for anyone who doesn't know what reverse redlining is, it's basically like, let's say back in the day, like certain neighborhoods had covenants, right? They're saying, okay, Jews can't live here, blacks can't live here, Latinos can't live here, Asians can't live here. Only certain types of people can live here, right? So they wouldn't sell to people of color in those areas or other, Jews. And
hey man, listen.
Well, I mean,
They still kind of got that though, right? Certain
no,
neighborhoods.
but the thing is, it's federal litigation to like get that stuff overturned, right?
Okay.
And depending where you are in the country, right? But then reverse redlining is basically saying, okay, you see this neighborhood, you see Hollis, you see St. Albans. Okay, a lot of black people live there, and black people want to buy this. So you know what we're gonna do? Even if they have good credit, and even if they put money down, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna give them a bad product, right? Just because of this neighborhood. I mean, I obviously I can't speak in detail, but I have white clients who live in some of these neighborhoods who got bad products because they're like, okay, we know most of these type of people live here, so we're going to give you this product, right? And so obviously some of it's on the homeowner because you actually have to read, right? But then you have companies who are getting these people, and honestly, I have some clients who don't speak English, right? And then I look at their I look at their paperwork, and I mean, obviously, everyone wants to have a piece of the American dream, but in a lot of ways, that's something you really can't help. It's like you're not gonna say, okay, I'm gonna go take English classes for 5 years and like come back and buy a house. It's like people want to buy the house, right?
Where's the attorney? Like you should have an attorney when you buying any type of
but it's
property.
not required,
But
right?
see, sometimes the mortgage brokers who want to get the deal done, they will provide the attorney for them. Oh. They'll get these types of loans, and like I was saying, I have some clients who don't even speak English, right? And they'll get these loans. And it's even like Spanish-speaking attorneys who would take advantage. Like I had this one lady who was a client before. She got a reverse mortgage. Wasn't a great product for her. And her nephew comes up to me and he's just like, like people came to her house. They started speaking Spanish. She trusted them, right? She was like, okay, these people aren't going to, lead me astray. And then next thing I was in bankruptcy court with this lady, trying to save her home. So it's like
You beat your own kind.
Be your own people.
Yeah. You think they're gonna send some nice guy with blonde hair, blue eyes from South Carolina to your house? No, it's like they send people who they think they stereotype that you can relate to, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, there's just a lot of people. They want to make a dollar, irregardless of
Who gets hurt?
who they hurt. Yeah.
Shawn, have you encountered that energy out doing what you're doing, or is it more like, get the fuck out of here? Or it's very easy to spot from your perspective.
Like in terms of the.
Like people try to basically give you a bad deal because they know you don't know better.
I kind of read.
See, so that's what I'm saying. Like it all boils down.
It really boils down to reading, man.
God,
And, and being careful where you place your pen, and your.
and your trust.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Fuck, man. So I guess
Do your homework.
like what
you gotta read.
you gotta read. I'm trying to like
Gotta do your
help
homework.
someone who wouldn't think to read. Like I guess because so you just knew from jump there basically. Like you kind of understood how to do it right from jump, and it
It's like
wasn't-
you ain't get burned,
You
right?
didn't need to learn a bad lesson to.
You ain't
to
getting
know
the clap
that.
real
It's
quick.
because of my job I had.
Okay.
I was the finance manager at a car dealer, so I was that last guy that you sit down with, that go over the loan with you, and you sign the paperwork. And I would say about 10 out of 10 of my customers never read. They probably just listen to whatever I state what they're signing.
So
Very rarely, very rarely.
So what's the top 5 things you're looking to read on like a property? Like what I guess what are
On
those?
the-
What things you should know? Right?
Or in terms of like the paperwork or the actual property itself. Like,
Well, I guess in terms of that chunk of the process, buying the house, what are the things you look for to know that you're just signing a good deal, both in the contract and what you're seeing in the property?
The rate, the term. I preferably believe you should go with, especially rates are low today, go with fixed mortgages. Don't think you really need to take adjustable. Yeah, definitely getting your own title company. Definitely don't take the title company the agent is giving you, because everybody's in cahoots to make money together. What else?
Now looking at the physical part of the home, like what are some of those things that are like you?
Yeah, like, how do you know you-
that's good? The red flag, green flag. You know what I'm saying? Like we're hearing that term a lot when it comes to relationships, but like yo lady, well yo shorty, what's a red flag? What's a red flag? If his name starts with a J, it's a red flag. So like I want to know what's a red flag for like a buying a house, like
New York City.
if it's a New York City, red flag.
Jeez, like, which red flag have I seen in buying a home?
Or seen other people buying a home because you do your work, so you less likely
Or
to make
even
a
like
mistake.
what's a good flag? It doesn't have to
Okay,
be red.
oh, yeah,
It could be
green
any
flag.
things that make you realize like this is a good investment from like spotting it. You know what I mean?
Those value adds. It's hard for me to say because it really goes by my experience. Because I'm looking at the comparable properties in the neighborhood, and looking at this price, and going into the property and looking at what needs to be done, and that gives me an idea if it's really a good home or not. The red flags are like trying to find out. I can't say it's a flag. Well, trying to find out why the person is trying to sell the home.
Okay.
You know, that gives you an idea.
Are there certain problems with a property that are too expensive to invest in, like plumbing or like
Structural issues. I mean, plumbing and electrical is kind of like the key things you should look for. I wouldn't say they're too hard to do unless you have the right people on your team to do it. Well, yeah.
So like, 2 questions, I guess. So one, do you have a team that does your work? That's somebody you always go to?
Yes, right now I have a few guys in Maryland that I deal with, you know, that
Okay.
if any issues pop up, they go and check it out. Or when I was doing the rehabbing.
So,
Okay.
so that's the best question. So you, in this Bur process, the best way to get the maximum value is to do the rehab yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's very important.
That could have went. Because
Because you're going to the, because part of the rehabbing, you're submitting to the bank that, hey, you know what, you need, I don't know, $15,000 for this kitchen, and then maybe you get it done for maybe 7 or 8. But if you go to the contractors, they're gonna charge you all the money in the world to get everything done. So I don't deal with contractors.
okay.
I don't.
All right. So yes. So I think we got off track. So that's
Yeah.
Bur. We're back in the Bur. So that's B. And then once you made it better, or while you're making it better, you rent it, right?
Well, after it's complete.
Once it's complete.
Correct.
Live in a house, can't go in the kitchen, they're still fixing it.
Right. And so now, my other question was now, have you ever had a problem selling a certain home?
Yes. I'm actually in a situation right now of selling one of my homes.
Why is that?
Tenants. Tenants will make things much harder when you want to sell your home, especially if they're living there. So I have a tenant. She's not paying. She hasn't paid rent for like 9 months. Of course, blaming COVID, the courts has been closed. You know, I had bought this property pre-COVID.
That's Maryland, right?
Yeah, Maryland. So all the numbers shot up. So I said to myself, you know, I didn't want to sit down and make this property became a liability for me. Every month I was kind of covering the mortgage just to keep the property. And nobody, institute family, nobody's paying rent. So, yeah, definitely having tenants in there, tenants that aren't paying
Right.
is like the worst scenario to have in a property.
Now, have you had to evict tenants in Maryland?
This is my
before?
my first time doing it. I'm going through the eviction process right now as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I
So-
guess that's when you come in, right? Because
Yeah, so I formerly actually worked as a landlord-tenant attorney as well, because this is the thing. Either we had, actually sometimes investors who are in foreclosure, but most of the time people own, like, let's say 2-family homes, right? Which is a lot of homes in New York City, 2 or 3 family homes. And people, and this is going to lead me actually to another point. You have people who buy the home and they say, okay, well, I may not be making the money to pay the mortgage myself, but hey, this is a 2-family home. I'll just get someone and they'll pay $1,600 a month, won't be that high, and cool, I can pay my mortgage every month. But what I'm sure Shawn would, tell anybody, right? It's kind of like if you're getting that money from tenants, you can't just go spend the money. It's like you have to save the money in case they don't pay, because it takes like 6 months to get someone out.
and to make repairs, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
So
probably
Yeah.
yeah, well, stuff like that, yeah. But the thing is, a lot of times in New York City, number one, it takes a few months to get someone out, right? Like if anyone ever goes to an attorney, the attorney says, "Oh, I'll get this person out in a month," they're lying. Like it's not going to happen because first time you go to court, they're going to give the person adjournment. You're going to come back in another month. Then even if you want to say, even if you tell the person, okay, let's go to trial right now, they're probably not going to hear you that day, and the judge is going to give them time on top of that. So most of the time, to tell you the truth, the smartest way to do it was go to court, try first time in court, try to settle it, right? Okay, you'll leave in a few months. You know, you don't have to pay rent. Just take your stuff and leave by this date, right? Or what a lot of investors would do, let's say if they wanted to clear a house, we would basically just take these people to court, first time in court, say, hey, look, can you be out in 30 days? This person's going to give you this amount of money, right? Because I guess it's baked into their calculus. And so they would say, okay, so you want to move to Florida? You need this amount to move to Florida? Okay, fine, we'll give you this amount, because then they know that.
At least the wheels.
Yeah, because then they're going to rehab it and flip it or
Right.
do whatever they're going to do.
It's cheaper to
Pay them out.
fly them out to Florida.
No, exactly, and that's what happens in a lot of situations too.
Gotcha.
I'm in the process of actually taking that same technique to offer the person upstairs money to leave.
Damn.
That's
Of
crazy.
course.
Wow.
Well, so I have this one story, right? And just to add on, I had a client. This client was trying to sell his home, right? Then, so the tenant said she would leave, and it was 7 days before closing, right? And this is actually kind of recently. And this man, he had bags packed. He was going to move to Miami, you know.
The landlord.
The landlord, right? So the tenant said, oh, I need a place to move. I don't have one yet. You know, I can't leave. So he couldn't close on the home until that happened, right? So basically what I had to do in this situation, and I wasn't doing landlord-tenant work at the time, I had to call the lady up and say, look, he's going to give you this amount. And the landlord was like, oh, no, I don't know if I want to give her this money. I'm like, follow my advice. Give her this money because you could either have like $5,000 or $7,000 less, or you can have nothing, right? Mm-hmm. So follow my advice. So basically, I had to negotiate with this lady for a week. She even hired an attorney, and basically, he ended up paying her out. And he went to closing, got the money for closing. I think he had to get a separate check for her. Had to go out in the hallway, give this lady a check, and she went on with her married life. And he thanked me afterwards because it was either do that and get his money at that point, or go to landlord-tenant court and wait however
6 months.
longer. Yep.
Forever.
Yep.
In New York City, without a house.
Well,
God.
it's that time again when we gotta close it up, man. Thank you very much for informing me, especially on the inner workings.
That shit blew my goddamn
Hell
mind.
yeah, man! I gotta go out here and do some homework. I gotta go watch a YouTube video, something. I gotta read a book. I gotta read.
I gotta watch this episode again.
I'm watching this episode 3-4 times.
Can I just
Taking notes?
Can I just say this one thing that people listening, right? If you're thinking of buying a home, if you have a parent or someone else or a family member who's thinking of buying a home, if they don't speak English, if they don't know what they're doing, if you don't know what you're doing, please look for your local housing agency. They're scattered throughout New York City. You can walk in. I mean, maybe before you can walk in, but you can call them up, and they'll give you advice in terms of some of the things you can do when you buy a house. They'll probably look over the paperwork, tell you if it's a good deal or not, if there are any pitfalls. They're free, and I would just advise anyone who has no idea what they're doing to please do that.
I really appreciate that. Is there any advice or anything you
Me?
would want to give to people who are
Looking to
possibly
buy a home.
doing?
Just to buy a home, like I tell everybody, it's an achievement and it's something that's not impossible to do. It's all about just having the correct information to do it. You know, if I ask a lot of random people, what do you need as a down payment to buy a house? They just tell me, I don't know, a lot of money. So everything is information. You can start as low as 3.5% down to get your first key for a house. And that's 3.5 of the property price. And it's very small. Everything boils back to math.
So do your math homework.
Read
Yes.
and do math.
Read and do
Hey
math.
kids, remember those math problems?
Remember when I was asking you how many watermelons he had? You gotta do that homework.
Math motherfuckers.
All right. Well, we have our artist of the week. Eugene, you want to tell us who our artist
And the second, Franklin?
Oh yeah, I got you.
Oh, right, Ev's doing the artist of the week.
Our wonderful artist of the week, we've worked with a couple of times, Franklin Gomez. He is the owner and founder of Isosceles, a branding and marketing corporate company. Does all your campaign, whatever you need to do. You need to rebrand or anything you need whether you want to rebrand your whole company or you want to just take a couple photos or get some videos done. Isosceles is your guy, so shout out to them.
He gonna make you
And he
look
also
good
the creative
on the
director
internet.
of this bad boy right
That's
here.
right,
So
he
all
is.
this Brandon you see here, if you want to look like us, he's the man.
You want to look as good as us, but you can never really look as good as us. You gotta hit up Franklin.
Yeah, he's the man, yo.
And then we have our sponsor.
That's you, baby.
Oh, that's right. Our sponsor for this week's podcast is Pediatrics 2000, run by Marino Torres and family. They are located in the Heights. They are servicing and they take all types of healthcare, especially people from urban communities. They serve the Heights, and they also speak Spanish. And they will see your babies and get them all the shots that they need. And all that other song and jazz. So definitely check them out at pediatrics2000iii.com. Because I guess Pediatrics 2000 was taken. That's how real it is. And so we will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. What else we got?
They said bye, right? Already?
They said bye.
Making sure.
Anything else you want to share with the people? It's I was gonna say SoundCloud. Any Instagram, social media,
Yes.
any companies that you work with or organizations that you're a part of that you want to inform the people about that can follow you?
Or not. I mean, you can.
Or not, you can just be like, leave me alone. I just put some knowledge on your piece out.
See me in the streets, you don't know me.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
I mean, if you're looking for your next used car, come and check us out. We're at Certified Cars of Huntington. That's 21602 Hempstead Avenue in Queens Village. We have all makes and models. We work with all types of credits. Come and check us out.
He pulled up in the orange McLaren.
Y'all got I was gonna say y'all got any number McLarens in the lot?
All day.
I need a pink one. That's what I need. A pink
Yeah.
one. All right. Well, without further ado,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Love y'all. Peace.
So what you're saying, to be clear, for our audience, because I actually read that article. I didn't look at that letter. I read it too, but listen, what they said was
Dropping gems like we preaching. Don't overstep the line of our freedom of speaking. We cast to the world, put the words in the street and connecting all the minds of the people we reaching.
Yo,
jury's out.
tempted to get fenced in and contempting. Teach you motherfuckers a lesson and pressing the issue at hand. Nah, I don't care about objections, suspensions, and cell inspections. Just suppression of black lives is my passion. And love for my fam is everlasting. So stop gassing these asses with glasses. Cause in the end, I leave them where the trash is.
Jury's out. Jury's out. Jury's out.
There's no doubt what we about, and we kick it to the masses. Trying to spit the law, and we laugh off our asses. Breaking down the latest shit, carrying crazy lady shit. Glad I got no baby shit. COVID got me crazy, bitch. Damn, and you gon' have to edit this. The jury's out, so you can't even credit us. No statements null and void, invalid evidence. No, you can't take us to court, cause you know
Jury's out. Jury's out. Jury's out. Jury's out.
I like to share knowledge. I like to share knowledge.
Again, it's more than sharing knowledge. It's
What is it?
Ask any attorney. When the jury's out, there's not a care in the world, be. We sit and talk shit no matter where the judge be. Cause she can't judge me. My job is done because my God not guilty. Don't try to tempt me to hell, I will send me. Look behind me, the team is with me. The jury's out, yeah, the jury's out. And if you got a doubt, he's walking out.
yup.
I'm not force feeding anyone knowledge. Do you see? I don't see a gun.
Jury's
You don't
out.
need a gun to force anything, right? You know?
Dude, you can force people. You can force people to
Jury's
be
out.
knowledge by making them feel stupid. You can just be like, we know you
Jury's
don't
out.
understand. I'm gonna break it down, and then they're like,
Oh, okay.
do
Jury's
I
out.
know people as well? Yes. So does water kills rocks. You know what I mean? Like that's just a side fact. So does religion. I think religion, no. No. I think I'm better than fucking like religion. I feel like it's on its last breath. Like I think I don't wanna. I think I'm smoother than that.
It's definitely not on his last breath.